Welcome to another video science story time. I'm Dr. Misty and I'm still in my house, but I wanted to be able to get another story time out to you guys. Today, we're going to be talking about eclipses and reading the book, Where Did the Sun Go? And so I thought we'd have another fun background behind me today while we learn about eclipses. So where did the sun go? On a special day in August, Mommy woke me up before the sun had risen. She said it was the day of the total solar eclipse, the day the moon would briefly cover up the sun. This is the sun rising on August 21st, 2017, and it's the day of the Great American Total Solar Eclipse. My family dressed and ate breakfast quickly. Then we drove to Casper, Wyoming, a city along the path of totality. Mommy said we have to be within this path to see the moon cover the sun. This yellow line here represents where the total solar eclipse was visible across the United States on that day. And this is Casper, Wyoming. That's where we drove to. There were lots of cars full of people when we arrived in Casper. We parked and found a grassy spot to sit and view the eclipse. Then Mommy gave me special glasses. She told me that before the moon covers the sun completely, it will only be blocking part of it. I must wear special eclipse glasses to look at the sun and see the partial total solar eclipse. And so these are both of my kids when we went on our trip to go see the total solar eclipse. We can still see the sun's light during a partial solar eclipse, which can damage our eyes quickly if we looked at it without proper eclipse glasses or filters. And so these are the eclipse glasses that both of my kiddos are wearing. At 10:22 a.m., the partial eclipse began with the moon sliding in front of the top right corner of the sun. So right over there. I put on my eclipse glasses like Mommy told me to and looked up. The sun looks like a cookie with a nibble taken out of it. And it does, it kind of looks like a cookie, an orange cookie, but it looks like a cookie with a little bite taken out of it. And so this is a picture of the start of the solar eclipse. The dark arc on the right of the sun is the moon beginning to pass in front of it. The small dark spots on the sun are actually sunspots, cooler areas of the surface of the sun. Over the next hour, the moon moved more and more in front of the sun. And so we watched it. And so in each of these little clips here, or time snippets, you can see that the moon has moved more and more in front of the sun. So we started out with just a little bit, and by the time we get about an hour later, we've got a whole big chunk of the moon that's being of the sun that is being covered by the moon. In addition to eclipse glasses, Mommy and I used pinhole viewers to see the partial eclipse. We also made a simulated eclipse with a model of the Earth and Moon. And so this is a little pinhole viewer here, and it's got a little tiny sun down there in the bottom of it, and you can see that the moon is covering it up slightly. And then we made a little model of what was happening for the eclipse with a scale Earth and a scale moon and the distance apart that they would be at those sizes. And I'll show you how you can do that in a different video. At first, I couldn't tell the partial eclipse was happening without my eclipse glasses or a pinhole viewer. But as the moon covered more of the sun, making it a crescent shape, I noticed the sunlight seemed strange. It wasn't nearly as bright out as when the partial eclipse began, and my shadow looked different. Some of its edges were sharp, while others were spread out. And so this, we were doing shadow puppets. And so this is a picture of my hands, and we can see here that the edges of my hand are actually very sharp, and up here they're very, very diffuse, and the edges are kind of hard to see. The shadows of my fingers and the bottom hand have sharp edges, and the edges of the shadows in the top hand are less defined and more spread out. Using my eclipse glasses, I watched as the moon covered up the last bit of the sun. And so the moon is sliding more and more and more in front of the sun. And then there was no more sun. Where did the sun go? I exclaimed. My son actually said that when the total solar eclipse happened. Mommy said it was safe for me to take my eclipse glasses off. As I did, the last bit of sunlight flashed from behind the moon, making the pair briefly look like a diamond ring. And so this is the moon, almost completely covering up the sun. There's just a tiny little bit of sunlight peeking through. And that's actually sunlight that's passing around mountains and through valleys along the edges of the moon. And the actual term that astronomers use to refer to this phase of total solar eclipse is called the diamond rings. And it kind of looks like maybe there might be a diamond here and this part might be a ring. At 11:42 a.m., darkness swept over the hill and the sky became a deep, dark blue, just like at twilight. We were standing in the moon's shadow. Looking up, I saw the sun completely covered by the moon. It had a glowing ring around it, the sun's atmosphere, the corona. And so this view here is what we could see with our eyes. And so it looked like a dark hole in the center of a bright ring around where the sun had been. And this is a zoomed in version of it that I used my camera to take a picture of with a special filter. Well, didn't use a special filter at this point. Up until that point, I was using a special filter. And so you can actually see the moon, this whole dark area right here, that is the moon completely covering up the surface of the sun, our view of the surface of the sun. And what we can then see, what emerges, which is hard to see unless we're obscuring the surface, is the sun's atmosphere. This white part here is called the corona. And this specific total solar eclipse had a very, very cool shape to its corona. It had these three kind of spikes, prominent spikes coming out of it. And so it actually has a very particular shape to it. So when you look at solar eclipse pictures, this one's very identifiable by those three spikes that look like they're coming from it. The sky was dark enough I could see a few stars and the planet Venus. That's Venus right there. And the horizon was a circle of sunsets painted pink and orange. And so these are my kiddos standing and looking up at the total solar eclipse, and then this is what the horizon looked like. So it would look like a sunset, but this was at 11 o'clock in the morning, almost noon, and this pink and orange color went all the way around the sky. The moon stayed in front of the sun for almost 2.5 minutes. As it began to slide off, the sky brightened first behind me, then the darkness quickly receded away across the sky. And so this was behind us, and this is the sky starting to lighten up as the moon shadow is actually moving along that path of totality onto the next location. After the total solar eclipse, the sky was no longer dark, but the sunlight was still dim, like before totality, casting those strange shadows. Many people began packing up to leave. Mommy asked what I would like to do. I wanted to stay till the very end. Using my eclipse glasses, I watched as more sun appeared. And so this is another one of those sequences of different times throughout the next hour. And so you can see that we're starting out here where the moon is starting to slide away from being in front of the sun, all the way to the point where there's just a tiny little bit. And we actually had some clouds up here when we were in Casper towards the end of this partial solar eclipse part. As the partial eclipse was coming to an end, I saw only a tiny bit of the moon covering the bottom left corner of the sun. It again looked like a cookie with a tiny bite taken out of it. So again, we've got our orangish cookie here with a little bite taken out of it. At 1:09 p.m., the moon no longer covered the sun. I was tired and excited at the same time. With the entire solar eclipse over, it was time to head home. And so this is the sun with no moon in front of it anymore. As we drove, I thought about all the amazing sights I had seen and knew one day I would travel to witness a total solar eclipse again. I hope you enjoyed our story today. Check later for our other video on an activity that you can actually do where you can make your own total solar eclipse. I hope to see all of you again really soon, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.